Have you ever felt a chill run down your spine, even when there's no reason to feel cold? Or heard a sound in the silence, something unexplainable? I used to think those feelings were just in my head, that they were irrational fears, until I encountered the woods, a place where fear doesn't just live, it thrives. And it's been waiting for someone like me, or you. Pause for effect. My name is John. I'm not sure if I'll live long enough to finish telling you this story, but I need to try. Because if you ever find yourself in these woods, you'll need to know what's coming. And trust me, you won't be prepared. It all started as a simple weekend getaway. Just a few friends, some camping gear, and a desire to escape the noise of city life. There were 5 of us. I still remember their faces. Sam, my best friend since high school. Emily, his girlfriend, always up for an adventure. Jason, the jokester, always lightening the mood. And then there was Sarah. Sarah was the kind of girl who could light up any room, but in the woods. She seemed different, almost distant. We had heard the rumors about the forest, how people who entered sometimes didn't come back. Of course, like any group of friends looking for a thrill, we laughed it off. Ghost stories, we said. Urban legends. It was supposed to be fun, harmless. But looking back, I realize how naive we were. We didn't just walk into the woods. We walked into a nightmare. We set up camp around noon on a Friday. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and for the first few hours, everything seemed perfect. But as the day wore on, the atmosphere shifted. The woods grew eerily quiet. No wind, no birds, just silence. At first it was almost peaceful, but then Sam wanted to go look for her. Jason insisted she must have gone for a walk, but I knew. Deep down, I knew something had taken her. By the time the sun began to set, we were all on edge. The whispers had returned, louder than ever. They were no longer just sounds. They were voices, calling our names, beckoning us deeper into the woods. And then we heard the scream. It was Sarah. It had to be. The sound was unmistakable, filled with terror, echoing through the trees. Without thinking, we ran towards it, deeper into the forest, our flashlights flickering as we pushed through the undergrowth. But no matter how fast we ran, the scream always seemed just out of reach. We were chasing a ghost, a phantom voice that led us further and further away from camp. And that's when we saw it. A clearing. In the middle of the woods, bathed in a pale, unnatural light. In the center of the clearing stood an old, decrepit cabin. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years, yet the light pouring from the windows was strong, almost blinding. None of us spoke. We just stood there, frozen, staring at the cabin as if we were under some kind of spell. "Sarah's in there," he whispered, his voice trembling. I wanted to stop him. I wanted to scream at him to turn back, but I couldn't move. Something in the air. It felt heavy, oppressive, like the very woods themselves were alive, watching us, waiting for us to make a mistake. Sam didn't wait for us. He bolted towards the cabin, Jason and Emily right behind him. And me? I hesitated. Something about that place felt wrong, like stepping through that door would be the last mistake I ever made. But I couldn't just leave my friends. So I followed. As we approached the cabin, the whispers grew louder. They were no longer distant. They were inside my head, so loud I could barely think. "John, John, come inside." The door creaked open as we approached, though none of us had touched it. Inside, the light was even more intense, casting strange, elongated shadows across the walls. The cabin was empty, at least at first glance. No furniture, no signs of life, just dust and silence. But then, we saw it. A staircase leading down to what looked like a basement. Jason, ever the brave one, started down the steps without hesitation, but I grabbed his arm. "Wait," I said, my voice shaking. This doesn't feel right." He looked at me, his usual cocky grin gone. "None of this feels right, John. But we can't leave Sarah. What if she's down there?" I wanted to argue, to turn around and run, but something deeper, something primal, kept me rooted to the spot. We had to know. We had to find her. The staircase creaked under our weight as we descended, each step echoing in the unnerving silence. At the bottom was a small, dark room, lit only by a single flickering bulb. We ran. We didn't think. We didn't look back. We just bolted up the stairs and out of the cabin as fast as our legs could carry us. The whispers followed us, growing louder, angrier, as if the woods themselves were alive, enraged by our escape. By the time we made it back to the campsite, the sun was beginning to rise. We were breathless, terrified, and completely disoriented. But Sarah was gone. The chair in the basement, gone. The cabin, gone. It was as if none of it had ever existed. We packed up and left that morning, without saying a word to each other. There was nothing to say. What had happened in those woods wasn't something we could explain, but it wasn't something we could forget either. And now, every night, I hear them. The whispers. They've followed me home. I don't know what they want, but I know one thing. Whatever lurks in those woods, it's not done with us. Maybe one day, it'll come for you too. Pause for effect. Tell me, have you ever heard whispers in the night? Do you believe in things that can't be explained? Let me know in the comments below. And if you do, well, maybe it's already too late for you too. I thought that once we left the woods, the nightmare would be over, but it didn't end. In fact, it only got worse. After we returned home, we all tried to move on with our lives, pretending like nothing had happened. We didn't talk about that night. Not with each other, not with anyone. But deep down, we knew something had followed us, and it wasn't going to let us go that easily. A few days passed, and that's when it started. The nightmares. Every night I'd find myself back in the woods, standing in front of that cabin. The door would creak open, and those whispers, they'd flood my mind, louder than ever. But in the dream, I couldn't move. I couldn't run. I was trapped, forced to watch as that tall figure with hollow eyes emerged from the shadows, walking slowly toward me. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, my heart racing, convinced that the figure was in my room, watching me. I'd turn on the light, look around, but nothing was there. Just the suffocating silence and the faint echo of the whispers lingering in my mind. I thought I was losing my mind, but then I got a call from Emily. She sounded frantic, her voice shaky. "John, it's happening to me too. The dreams, the whispers, I'm seeing things." I knew exactly what she meant. She didn't have to explain. It was happening to all of us. Jason, who was always the skeptic, tried to brush it off at first. "It's just trauma," he said. "We're all freaked out because of what happened in the woods. It's our minds playing tricks on us." But even he couldn't ignore the signs for long. One night, he called me in the middle of the night, panic-stricken. "John, I'm not alone. There's someone in my house. I can hear them." I rushed over to his place as fast as I could, but when I got there, the door was wide open. Inside, the house was in shambles, furniture overturned, pictures shattered, like someone or something had torn through the place in a rage. But Jason, he was nowhere to be found. We searched for him for days. The police got involved, but they found no leads, no signs of forced entry, no evidence of a struggle. It was as if Jason had simply vanished. And then one by one, the others started disappearing too. First, it was Emily. I went over to check on her after she hadn't responded to any of my calls. Her apartment was eerily quiet, and just like Jason, there was no sign of her. But on her bed, scrawled in what looked like dirt or ash, were the words, "It's here." Sam was the last one to go. He had been keeping to himself ever since that night in the woods, convinced that if he just stayed inside and kept the lights on, nothing could get him. But that didn't matter. The whispers found him. They always find you. The night he disappeared, I was on the phone with him. He sounded paranoid, frantic, saying he could hear footsteps outside his window. I tried to calm him down, telling him it was just his imagination, but then I heard it too. A faint knock, slow, deliberate, like someone or something was right outside. "John, it's here," he whispered, his voice trembling, and then the line went dead. I went to his place the next morning, but just like the others, he was gone. No sign of struggle, no clues, just gone. Now, I'm the only one left. The nightmares haven't stopped. The whispers are louder than ever. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I feel like I'm constantly being watched, like that figure with the hollow eyes is just waiting for the right moment to take me too. But here's the thing. I don't think it's just me anymore. I think it's spreading. I've been getting messages, random texts, emails from strangers saying they've been hearing whispers too, saying they've seen a figure standing at the edge of their bed at night, just watching. It's like whatever was in those woods has escaped, and now it's looking for more. So if you're hearing whispers, if you've been having nightmares, maybe it's already too late for you too. But if you haven't yet, then consider this your warning. Whatever you do, don't go into the woods. And if you hear the whispers, don't listen. Now tell me, have you ever experienced something you couldn't explain? Have you ever felt like you were being watched, even when you were alone? Share your stories in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, well, maybe it's only a matter of time. Don't forget to let me know where you're watching from. We're all connected in ways we can't even begin to understand. But maybe, just maybe, if we stick together, we can figure out how to stop this before it's too late. I knew that my time was running out. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, that gnawing dread that never went away. Every night, the whispers grew louder. Every night, I would see the figure standing just outside my window, watching, waiting. But I couldn't just sit around and wait for it to take me like it did the others. I had to do something, anything to break this curse. I thought maybe if I went back to where it all started, to the woods, I could find a way to end it. So, I packed up what little courage I had left and drove back to the place that had haunted me for weeks. As I stood at the edge of the forest, the same chilling wind blew through the trees, carrying the faint sound of those damned whispers. I stepped into the woods, the trees closing in around me, and with every step, the air grew colder, thicker, as if the forest itself was alive and breathing. The path was familiar, yet it felt like it had changed, like the woods had shifted since we'd last been there. Eventually, I found it, the clearing, the cabin. It looked exactly the same as before, old, decrepit, with that same unnatural light pouring out of the windows. But this time, I wasn't frozen in fear. I knew what had to be done. I stepped inside. The whispers, which had been a constant background noise, suddenly became deafening. They were screaming now, so loud I had to cover my ears. But I didn't stop. I went straight for the basement. The staircase creaked under my weight as I descended, just like before. The basement was the same too, small, damp, lit by a single flickering bulb. And there, in the center of the room, was the chair, empty, but somehow waiting. I could feel the presence behind me before I even turned around. Slowly, I turned, and there it was. The figure, tall, impossibly tall, with those hollow black eyes staring straight at me. But this time, it didn't just stand there. It moved. It took a slow, deliberate step towards me, and then another, until it was inches away from my face. I could feel its cold breath on my skin, the weight of its gaze piercing through me. For the first time, I spoke. "What do you want?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the pounding in my chest. The figure didn't answer. It just stared, its hollow eyes boring into me, as if it were looking straight into my soul. And then, without warning, it reached out and touched my forehead. The moment it made contact, everything went black. I don't know how long I was out. Minutes? Hours? Days? When I finally came to, I was no longer in the basement. I was lying on the ground, outside the cabin, the sun just beginning to rise over the horizon. But something was different. The whispers were gone. The oppressive weight that had followed me for weeks had lifted. It was over. I stood up, disoriented, but alive. I made my way back to my car, driving home in silence, my mind racing with everything that had happened. But as the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. My friends were still missing. I hadn't found any answers, and though the whispers had stopped, I knew deep down that it wasn't really over. A few weeks later, I received a package in the mail. No return address, just a small unmarked box. Inside was an old, tattered book with no title, its pages yellowed with age. As I flipped through the pages, I realized what it was: a journal. The handwriting was shaky, frantic, like the person who had written it was in a state of panic. The entries were short, filled with descriptions of whispers, of tall figures with hollow eyes, of disappearances just like mine. The final entry was dated over 100 years ago. It read, "They are coming." I thought I had escaped, but you can never truly escape them. They will find you, no matter where you go. They will follow you into your dreams, into your waking life, until they take everything from you. And when they do, you will join them. The journal slipped from my hands as a chill ran down my spine. I glanced over at the window, and there, in the fading light of the evening, I saw it. The figure, standing at the edge of my yard, watching, waiting. It wasn't over. It would never be over. Final pause for effect. So tell me, do you think you can escape what's coming? Do you believe you can outrun the shadows that follow you? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're lucky enough to still have peace in your home, enjoy it while it lasts. Because the whispers, they never stop, and they're always watching. If you're still here, and your heart's racing like mine, then you know this story isn't just another tale. It's something that lingers, something that might follow you even after the screen goes dark. So, if you want more chilling stories like this one, make sure to hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and drop a comment below. Tell us your scariest experience, or maybe, just maybe, the whispers have already reached you too. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because you never know when the next story might come for you.